Fighting the mighty dragon with his sword, he uses all his strength, determined to defeat the monster. The name of the warrior is Toru Aiban. He is a part of the S-rank party White Fang, led by the hero Sane. Preventing the attack on his teammate Lisa, he asks her if she is okay, and gladly she is safe. All the members are exhausted from fighting the battle for so long now, but the hero, Sane, urges them not to give up or stop at the moment because they are almost done and are only a few steps back from winning the smash. All of the members are childhood friends and they always support each other. They were meant to do great things together, or at least they were supposed to. Once the battle is won by the team, they all gather together to relax with some refreshments and have a talk, while the conversation may just be too shocking for Toru. Sen breaks the news to Toru that he is now expelled from the party. After hearing him, Toru stumbles upon where he is sitting. He can't comprehend Sane's words. On seeing Toru's reaction, Sora comments that he should have acknowledged the lows by now. Hearing all of that, it strikes Toru that lately he has been a hindrance to the party, but nevertheless, this is all just too sudden. He wonders if they all are kidding, with a look that screams hurt, to which Sen replies with his hands on his head that he should understand that he'd be very sad if someday he were to lose Toru. And as if all of it isn't enough of a shock for Toru, he hears his fiancée Lisa agreeing with Sane. Lisa says that Toru could die at any moment while fighting battles because there stands a huge wall between the level he is at and the level that the others are at. Toru stares bewildered at Lisa when his eyes get to the ring hugging her finger. Upon a close look, Toru realizes and questions out loud to Lisa that the ring in her finger is not the one that he gave her. He is confused as an eerie silence spawns across the room. His eyes fly to look at Swara and then Nei, and then eventually towards everyone else present in the room when he starts connecting the dots, and out of nowhere, it all makes sense to him. He finally understands what is actually happening. Toru realizes that his fiancée has been sleeping with his best friend, Sane, and that he is getting in the way of their fun, so now they want him out of the party. Toru's world shatters as the bitter truth of betrayal consumes him, his eyes welling up with unshed tears. Toru stumbles on his steps while his mind constantly thinks about how long this has been going on. He just can't accept all that is happening around him. When Sane figures that Toru has finally uncovered the truth, he taunts him, saying that he should support their exploits from afar now that everything is clear to him. The anger surges up Toru's veins as he punches Sane across his face, causing him to fall off of his chair. Sitting on top of Sane, Toru raises his fist and asks Sane why he has betrayed him, even after knowing that Toru and Lisa were engaged to get married. But to Toru's amusement, Sane grins at him, and that causes Toru's rage to peak, so he lands another furious punch at Sane's injured face. The blows from Toru stop when he is bashed away from Sane, as Nei kicks him hard in his guts, leaving him with a painful interaction against the wall. Lisa helps Sane regain his posture, while Nei frantically asks what is wrong with Toru, and Sora disgustingly calls him a scum for creating a scene. Lisa gets up and tells Toru that she no longer wants any relations with him whatsoever, right after throwing their engagement ring at him. Toru again is left astonished, disappointed and hurt. Toru decides to leave with his shattered heart, and the weather too had no intention to go easy on him as the rain started pouring down heavily. Walking in the rain, Toru stumbles in his steps and looks down at the ring on his palm. The sight of it reminds Toru of the past, when Lisa looked so happy and beautiful, holding the ring very close to her heart, but today she threw the ring right at Toru as if none of them, Toru and the ring, mattered to her. Throwing the ring away from him, he falls on his knees and begins to curse his cruel fate. He questions himself if he even meant anything to Lisa and what she was even thinking before sleeping with Sane and betraying his trust like that. The rage, the pain of the betrayal, all of it comes crashing down at him as he keeps punching the ground despite the injuries he keeps receiving from that. After a while, he lays flat on the ground, gazing up at the sky, his hands still adorned with fresh wounds from the continuous punching earlier. He thinks about the future. He's aware that his stats are not impressive and most of his skills are useless, and at best, they are damage reduction, physical enhancement, and skill enhancement. However, skills like the mysterious ability and the saving system stand completely useless. He is at level 20, Lisa, Ney, and Swara are at level 40, and Sane at level 60. He believes that if he had other skills as strong as Sane's, then none of this would be happening, and calls himself a nuisance whilst putting all the blame on himself. Toru breaks away from his trance when he hears the ground around him move a bit. He looks around to find a black demon dog marching towards him. He, even though surprised, stands and gets alert as the demon dog may attack any time now. The rage in Toru runs fresh again, and as the demon dog comes at him with a growl, Toru swiftly glides his sword through the demon dog's body, cutting it off into two distinct pieces. Satisfied with the blow, Toru shoves his sword back into its cover when a clicking sound gets his attention. He looks up to find that a lot of information about his stats pops up. The information board said that he has now successfully entered level 300, and since the experience value saving level has reached the upper limit, it'll be paid 100 times. It also informed Toru that his payout has been increased due to the UP skill effect. After entering level 300, the race cannot be maintained with Toru's current body structure, and hence it provides Toru with a whole new physical reconstruction. The race has now become a dragon man. All of it happens so suddenly that it takes a few minutes for Toru to sum it all up and understand what's occurring to him. Toru realizes that he is leveling up. He couldn't believe his eyes, but everything turns out to be as real as it could get. He begins to give it a thought and finally understands that the saving experience was never a useless skill, but an automatic skill. It was a saving ability that would only unleash its power once it had accumulated enough experience to reach a predetermined level. And today, finally, the ability broke. All of Toru's stored experience has finally broken and been paid for, and suddenly it all sits right with him. Suddenly it all makes sense to him. He got the answers to why he had always tried harder than anyone else in the party, but never leveled up. Toru now is a level 300 Dragon Man warrior. He gives off a proud chuckle as he again lays down on the ground, however this time with a contained and proud smile on his face. He looks at the sky. The sun is seemingly shining as bright as it can. He decides that he is going to travel the world because now that he is level 300, there is nothing that he should be afraid of. He realizes that this way he can repair the gaping hole in his chest that is caused by his closed ones. He sits up and decides that he is going to begin this new journey from the neighboring country, Armand, the border town of Livio. Walking down the streets of the country Armand, Toru considers the surroundings pretty lively, even though it is situated in the middle of nowhere. He comes across a slave store and remembers the betrayal from his party members, whom he took as friends, and concludes that he needs to hire a slave because slaves are bound by contracts that prevent them from betraying their masters. Toru needs a partner he can trust, and for that he just needs to pay for the slave to completely submit to him only. He really didn't care if it was backed by trust. Right now he just wants some peace of mind. As soon as Toru enters the store, he is welcomed by a man, possibly the owner, who is covered in black from head to toe with a black hat sitting on his head and a monocle on his right eye. The owner asks Toru how he can help him, to which he shares that he needs a slave with whom he can go to battles. The owner asks Toru about his preference for the slave's race, but Toru seems to have none. The owner then begins to put forward his suggestions, saying that for combat, he would recommend a lizard man. Toru asks the price, and the owner states that it is 30 million. Toru then proceeds to look for other slaves. The owner brings him to one of the compartments that caged an elf behind bars. He tells Toru that he'd recommend him to buy an elf, even though she had no combat experience. She could still accompany Toru in the evenings or be trained as a mage and prove to be useful as a ranged defense. On asking the price, the owner replies 25 million. Noticing the silence from Toru, the owner inquires about his budget and Toru says that it is 1.5 million. The owner asks Toru to follow him to another section behind the curtains. This section that the owner brought Toru into comprises slaves that are valued at less than 1 million because they are weak, ugly, sickly, and have no training whatsoever. But the owner doesn't forget to mention that there is a good chance that these slaves may be good for something else. Toru and the owner are busy looking for the right choice when they hear a scream. A slave behind bars screams, saying the words 300, which leads Toru to ponder over the fact that the slave girl is able to see the level he belongs to. Toru begins to ask the owner about the price of the slave girl that screamed at Toru, and the owner states it is 110,000. Toru astonishingly asks the reason behind such a low price, and the owner says that it is because the slave girl is very sick. Toru couches down and asks the slave girl her name. She introduces herself as Kaede. Toru thinks to himself, repeating her name again in his mind and considers it a nice name. Toru decides to buy her. Once the contract is dug into the slave girl's chest, Toru tells her to follow him out. The girl starts limping because of her poor condition, so Toru lifts her up behind his back and starts walking. He asks her if she is feeling all right, and she responds with an inaudible yes. Toru brings the girl to the doctor to have her checked up. The doctor examines her and states that it is rather a rare disease that affects beast people. Toru, bewildered, asks the doctor if she isn't a human, and the doctor says that it is hard to understand because she doesn't have ears or a tail, but he is sure that she belongs to the beast race. The doctor also mentions that her pupils are long and narrow, and she also has a protuberance that looks like a tail. Listening to the doctor, Toru thinks to himself that if the doctor's words are true, then will her physical ability be high? Toru begins to ask the doctor if there is any cure for the disease, and the doctor states that a potion made from the heart of a dragon belonging to the original species can do the job. The girl tries to stand from the chair as Toru rushes to her side and assures her that she will get better in no time. The girl stares at him and then at the floor. Toru scratches his hair and tells her that in order to be of any use to him, she needs to heal first. Toru then looks her in the eyes and asks with a smile if she thinks it is weird for the master to care for his slave in this way, but in response the girl just stares at him. The doctor bids them goodbye and tells Toru to come back once they run out of pills. Toru thanks the doctor, calling him an old man, to which the doctor replies with a scream, saying that he is only 30 years old. Toru begins to walk away with Kaede on his back. It's been 3 hours since Toru started walking deep into the woods. He can sense creatures looking at him, but every time he tries to look for those creatures, they somehow vanish, and this leads him to wonder if the creatures use their wild intuition to detect danger. The sudden jerk caught Toru's attention. He looked for the source of the commotion only to find a dragon creating terror around itself. Normally an army is formed to fight out these monsters, but today definitely is the day where either Toru fights or dies. The dragon is huge, almost about 10 meters tall. Looking at it, Toru wonders if he will be able to defeat it all by himself. But then he remembers Kaede. She's waiting for him at his place. He needs to fight and defeat this dragon so that he can return to Kaede. Toru grabs his sword and instigates the dragon to fight him. The dragon moves his eyes to look at Toru, and the dragon's murderous glare is enough to create chaos within Toru, but he stands strong and fights it. The dragon brings his head down with the intention to hurt Toru, its mouth wide open and its teeth shining like a sharp blade. However, at this time, Toru can only think about the betrayal from his friends and reminds himself that he is not like them and he will never leave his closed ones behind. So then he takes a huge leap and swiftly runs his sword through the dragon, separating its head from its body. But his strength was so elevated that a single blow was enough to cut through the dragon's head, its tail, and a huge terrain. He looks behind, inspects the destruction he has caused, and realizes the power of level 300. Toru gets back to his place and places a cloth containing a few pills with a glass of water beside those pills on the table. Kaide asks if he did all of this for her, and Toru says that earlier he bought a few necessary ingredients and asked the doctor to create the medicine, all while urging her to drink water and take those pills. After taking the medication, Kaide seemed a bit better and dozed off. Toru was pretty happy with the improvements he noticed, because even though the improvement is not much, at least it is working. Toru stares at his palm. He was successful in defeating the dragon with his own hands. He never imagined this kind of power that came along with the stats of being a level 300. From now on, he decides to fight with caution. He is very happy with the power and success. He never thought he'd have to ever worry about fighting with caution. It is thrilling and he likes the feeling. The morning comes sooner than expected. Toru wakes up with a yawn and moves into his bed, but to his surprise, he finds Cade sleeping right beside him. Yet surprised, he decides to shrug it off. Toru goes to a chef with a box in his hand and opens it only to take out a piece of meat from the inside of it. He keeps the meat in front of the chef. He asks the chef to cook him something out of the meat and offers him money in return. The chef looks at the meat. He tells Toru that at first it looks like pork, but upon closer inspection, it doesn't seem so, to which Toru replies that it is actually red dragon meat. Hearing Toru, the chef's eyes almost bulge out of their sockets as he screams in shock and amusement. Nevertheless, after a few minutes, he presents Toru with dragon meat steak and a hamburger. After taking a bite of the dragon steak, he is left speechless and amazed because of its deliciousness. Oh, he will never look at a dragon the same way ever again. Toru enters the room with a tray in his hand. Kaide asks what is in the tray, and Toru says that it is her breakfast, a dragon burger and a glass of juice. She bites into the meal and is blown away by its deliciousness. Toru looks at Koide endearingly, with his chin resting on his palm while she is busy having her meal. Toru tells her that they need to do something about Kaide's clothes, causing Kaide to choke on her food. Toru takes Kaide to a store and he makes sure to have her properly dressed. Kaide and Toru look around for bags, weapons, and shoes. Toru asks Kaide if she wants to use a wand, but instead she picks up 2 iron fans and begs Toru to buy her those iron fans. Toru tells her that the iron fans as weapons are too big for her to handle, but then Kaide shows her skills using the iron fans, amazing Toru. Walking side by side, they stroll across a stall selling bread puffs and sweets. Kaide gazes longingly at the bread puffs, which does not go unnoticed by Toru. However, the sight of those buns reminds him of the days when he and Lisa used to enjoy them together. Shaking off those thoughts, he asks Kaide if she wants some buns, offering to buy them for her. At first she declines, but Toru insists, telling her not to be shy, so she gladly accepts. They sit on a bench and Toru places the parcel of buns in front of Kaide, telling her to have as much as she wants. Watching her enjoy the feast, he smiles fondly. Kaide thanks Toru but addresses him as master again, causing frustration. He requests her to stop calling him master repeatedly. Kaide looks surprised at his sudden outburst and says timidly that a master is a master. Hearing her, Toru's eyes soften and he looks away. Kaide starts crying out of fear, saying masters don't like annoying slaves and worries. Toru will abandon her. Toru immediately looks at her, places his hands on her head, caresses her softly, and assures her that he will never abandon her because he wants her to stay with him till the end of his life. He then says with a cheeky smile that he may not be the best master, but he still needs her. Kaide holds his hands and tells him that she's counting on him, praises him, saying that he is the best master, and begs him to let her stay with him forever. Toru fumbles, saying he's ashamed to hear that, as Kaide instantly apologizes. Toru then suggests Kaide cut her bangs, and she replies she can do it herself if given scissors. Suddenly, Toru hears the clicks again. It seems he's unlocked more levels and regained more power. Toru feels weird tickling sensations travel up his veins, exactly like when he first unlocked new powers. He soon realizes that his skills have been broken again, providing him with more experience, causing him to gain more power. Numerous information tabs pop up in front of him yet again, alerting Toru that his skills have increased by 10 times, and he's now occupied with new skills like magic lending, and experience multiplier. He feels the power ignite through his body, leading him to tremble in his seat. While he is busy figuring out his new skills and strengths, Kaide beside him senses that something is wrong with her master and falls off the bench out of fear. Breaking himself out of his thoughts and business, he finds Kaide on the ground, all scared and worried. He stands up and helps Kaide to get up from the ground while asking if she's alright, and informs her that he's gained more skills and power now and there's nothing to fret over. Hearing the news, Kaide exclaims with joy and calls Toru a great master. Toru smiles hearing the compliment and asks Kaide if she really means what she said, to which Kaide nods delightfully. Toru begins to carefully inspect his stats and finds out that his skill level has advanced over the limit. However, he notices that there are still 2 saving skills left and wonders what happens when it is released. Kaide notices Toru's turmoil and inquires if he is alright, to which Toru replies that he is just a little surprised and that is it. Toru observes that Kaide shifts hesitantly in her seat and asks her if she needs anything, but Kaide scratches her head, saying that it's really nothing. Toru continues persisting with her to tell him if she wants anything. Kaide finally answers, requesting that she wants some soap, leaving Toru confused but eventually figuring out what she means. After getting back to their place, Toru takes Kaide to the shower room and starts removing his shirt. Acknowledging the sight in front of her, Kaide immediately lets out a gasp, looks down and asks Toru if he is sure about this. Toru answers that he is completely fine with showering together and bathing her, and he also confirms that he does not want a girl's body, which causes slight redness in Kaide. Kaide enters the shower room after wrapping a towel around her body and finds Toru with a towel tied around his waist. Toru looks at Kaide, asking her to sit on the upside-down wooden drum, and mentions that he will be washing her hair first, but Kaide refuses reluctantly, saying that a master should not be doing this. However, Toru sticks with his decision and commands Kaide to her master's order. Kaide simply walks over and takes a seat obediently. Toru lets out a coffin, signaling Kaide to take off the towel that is wrapped around her body. He looks at Kaide's bare back and his eyes get stuck on her protuberance, but proceeds to kneel down and begin washing her hair. While still rubbing the foam in her hair, Toru questions her on what race she belongs to, and Kaide answers that she is from a fox race. After hearing that, Toru thinks to himself that even though he has never seen a fox, he still has heard about their existence, and he also remembers the rumors about the fox type being golden-tailed. Still preoccupied with his train of thought, he mistakenly moves his hand towards Kaide's bosoms, which causes Kaide to squirm in her seat, and that startles Toru. Acknowledging his actions, he quickly retracts his hands and turns around while apologizing to Kaide, but she looks behind herself at Toru discreetly and mumbles that she doesn't mind if that's what her master wants. Toru looks at her, taken aback by her words, but after looking at her innocent eyes, his orbs soften despite that he regains his posture and flicks Kaide's forehead, earning a groan from her. He begins to walk out of the shower room, but when he gets near the curtains, he tilts his head to look back at Kaide and comments with a grin that he will think about such adult activities once she's old enough. Kaide gets done with the rest of the shower and clothes herself. After that, she uses a pair of scissors to adjust her bangs and complains about her lack of control over the blades. While she is busy cutting her bangs and mumbling stuff, Toru stares at her fondly and admires her beauty. He points out the pointed portions on her head and tells her that those are still left to be cut, but to his surprise, Kaide exclaims that those are her ears. Toru looks at her confused and asks her about those fox ears, even though she has human ears. Kaide answers his confusion, telling him that there exists a theory stating that the god who created the beast race was very fond of those ears, but the god still wanted to keep the human ears intact, and so the beast is blessed with both forms of ears. After hearing what Kaede said, Toru comments that all of it just sounds like a fetish, to which Kaede agrees. It's already night and Toru is sweeping the floor while Kaede is sitting on the ground with a dirt collector in her hands with the motive to help Toru. Suddenly Kaede calls Toru, gaining his attention. She tells him with a wide smile that she had a good time with him, and looking at her happiness, Toru smiles to himself and hopes that they'll have more fun tomorrow as Kaede promises to be with him forever. The next day, Toru enters their shared place and heaves an unhappy sigh. It grabs Kaide's attention even though she was busy hanging the wet clothes in order for them to dry out. She then questions him about his low mood, and Toru tells her how the old man at the store got angry and charged him a lot of money for the repair of the swords. Kaiser asks him to elaborate after being unable to understand what he meant. Toru expresses that yesterday, when he was cleaning the sword, it broke, and today he went to the weapons shop to look for a new sword, and the owner provided him with the sturdiest one. After getting out of the store, he decided to try out his new sword, but because of his elevated strength and power, a single blow into the air caused the new sword to break in half. So then he went back to the store and the owner got really mad, and that's how he ended up in this situation. Hearing his distress, Keida jumps in excitement and announces that she has the perfect weapon for Toru, saying that Keida takes Toru to the Temple of the Sacred Arms, a vast majestic structure that looks like it came straight out of the Roman Empire, sits in the middle of greenery. The beautiful scenery takes Toru in amazement. The sacred arms, only the heroes are worthy of using it. It is a sacred weapon that only the chosen ones can possess. Toru walks ahead in the direction of the temple, determined to possess the weapon, and even though Toru doubts his own ability, Kaide walks with surety that Toru will definitely be successful in this venture. While walking inside the temple, Keida tells Toru that people say the temple is built by the gods, which amuses him. They stop when their path is hindered by a huge gate, obstructing them from entering the premises hidden behind those doors. Kaide explains to Toru that there are two tests to obtain the sacred arms. First, he needs to open the locked gate in front of him, and second, he needs to remove the weapon from its pedestal. Hearing all the details from Kaide, Toru asks how she knows about all of this, to which Kaide stutters and replies that she knows someone who has a lot of knowledge about this stuff. After reaching the closed gates, Toru exclaims at its massiveness but finds no handle on it. In confusion, he shares this dilemma with Kaede, so she suggests he may try and touch the gate to see if it opens. To their surprise, the gate ripples and opens with a loud thud. As soon as Toru touches it, They begin to walk inside and are welcomed by rows of blazing fire stands on either side, at the end of which the sacred arm shines yet is stuck deep into the pedestal. The glaze of the sacred arm astonishes Toru, but then he notices that the weapon is single handed and hopes that he will be able to adapt to it. However, Keida informs him that the sacred arm changes size and shape to adapt to its owner. Toru proceeds to walk over to the pedestal, holds the sword, and gives in all his strength to take it out. The weapon comes out, causing Toru to stumble back and almost fall because of the tremendous amount of force he had used. Kaide starts pampering and congratulating Toru on his victory, but instead earns a thank you filled with gratitude. Toru thanks her, saying that he would have been without a weapon if Kaide hadn't mentioned this place. However, Kaide praises Toru, saying that he would have come here eventually anyway because he is the chosen one. Toru in return just shakes his head, telling her that she is giving him too much credit that he is worthy of. Hearing continuous compliments and praises from Kaide, Toru remembers his previous party where no one, not even Lisa, ever complimented him but Kaede. She is always eager to praise and boast about him. He is brought out of the thoughts of his past when Kaede gives him a call. She requests him to allow her to go on adventures along with him, to which Toru very gladly agrees with an endearing smile on his face. Putting the weapon on his back, Toru and Kaede walk out of the temple. On their way back, Toru says to Kaede that once they get to the city, they will form a group and debut as adventurers, and in response, Kaede jumps and squeals in agreement and excitement. Elsewhere, an entire room bounces with sensual sounds from the carnal intimacy that Sane and Lisa are engaged in. Sora is sitting on the ground while leaning against the edge of the bed, while Nei lays on the mattress. Both seemed really exhausted, probably from previous erotic activities with Sane. Lisa screams as she begs Sane to stop because she is not able to take him anymore. Hearing her words, Sane growls as he pulls back and passes a comment on her lack of stamina. Sane gets off of the bed and pulls up his pants, still leaving it unbuttoned. He sits on the sofa and sighs with satisfaction as he remembers the look on Toru's face when he discovered the betrayal. Sane laughs, calling his reaction priceless. Sane calls Toru an idiot for being recklessly backstabbed by her own ex-fiancé and team members. Lisa already belonged to Sane, but Toru took a pretty long time to realize it. However, Sane has been occupied with a rare skill, Demonic Eye of Lure, which provides him with the power to forcibly captivate the opposite sex. Sane had always believed himself to be an impeccable man, but no matter what, for some or other reason, Lisa, Nei, and Sora always chose Toru over him, which created jealousy within Sane, and right at that moment he gained the perfect ability to correct those mistakes, which is the Demonic Eye of Lure skill. Using that skill, he lured in Lisa, who earlier refused to even look at Sane and is now infatuated with him. Sane sadistically enjoyed engaging in intimate activities with Lisa right under Toru's nose, while Toru considered Sane as his best friend. Sane grins, thinking that now he does not have to worry about that dead weight slowing him down anymore, so he can prepare to defeat the Demon Lord sooner or later. Demon Lord is akin to a disaster that appears once every 100 years. It is said that the Demon Lord appears from among the demon tribe, but has the capability to appear from the human tribe as well. Sane decides to get his hands on some sacred arms to continue on his mission of defeating the Demon Lord. Even though it is a lot of work, a greedy and ruthless person like Sane would do it just for fame and money. The next day, Sen lets out a loud, surprised scream, when he hears the news about the defeat of the great dragon. Noticing the erupting anger from Sen, the informer apologizes for putting Sen through this, but Sen excuses him, saying that he's just surprised by the suddenness of it. Sen proceeds to ask the informer if he knows who is the one that defeated the great dragon, but to his very disappointment, the informer had no idea about that person. The informer said that they only found the beheaded body when they went to investigate in the woods. Saint Soranei and Lisa were outside when Saint punched the tree trunk out of frustration after sharing details about the defeat of the great dragon with the girls. Seeing his actions, Lisa asks if he is angry, but he denies it and swears under his breath. Ney looks at Saint and suggests with a huge grin that they should forget about the dragon and do something fun at the inn. However, Saint tells her to shut up. Lisa, lost in her own thoughts, wondering who could have managed to defeat the great dragon, an enemy that no ordinary adventurer would hope to encounter, Say notices the grave seriousness engulfing them and insists on getting moving now that the city is at peace. After reaching the temple of the sacred arms with the intention to get his hands on the sacred weapon, Saint finds out that someone has successfully possessed the sacred arm before he himself could. The sight of the empty pedestal angered Saint, and he started growling loudly like a crazy man. Looking at his condition, Lisa came to calm Saint down, but he pushed her away and warned her to not touch him or he would kill her. Lisa is left scared on the ground as she apologizes fearfully and timidly. Saint runs his brain through and gives all of that is occurring a thorough thought. Ever since Toru left the party, things have gone south. He feared that Toru is behind all of this, but then he brushes off such thoughts, convincing himself that Toru certainly is not capable of such wins and he is up against someone more powerful, but that someone is not Toru. But then he does not know anyone in Armand who is strong enough to defeat the great dragon, so he concludes a possibility that the one who took the sacred arms and the one who defeated the great dragon is the same person. With furious rage riding through his veins, he decides that if he ever meets the one behind all of this, he will make sure to kill that person. All four of them walk through the city in search of the dungeon of Lontata. When Lisa informs Sora and Ney about it, Sora screams in excitement as if she is able to complete it. Her name will be recognized by all. Sen walks down the streets and asks a resident about the dungeon. The resident tells him that there was one in the city last month, but upon being asked about the directions, he refuses, saying that there is no such thing as directions, and tells the four of them to just keep walking forward. Sen is unable to believe what his eyes are witnessing, a humongous hole in the middle of the city indicating that the dungeon of Luntata has already been cleared and the rewards have been won by someone else. He falls on his knees, not being able to understand what has been happening with him. Truth be told, this incident started a month back in Lutenta. A month back, the duo had just arrived, and Keide exclaims with excitement about getting an adventurer's card. Seeing her excitement, Toru alerts her not to lose her card, as it serves as an identity to her. Toru looks down at his card and remembers that his previous party belonged to S rank, but now he is back to rank B. They both begin to walk down a street that reeks of alcohol, and the escorts are dressed inappropriately in order to bring in customers. Kaide questions about the unique aura that the place is giving off, and Toru tells her that this place is famous for good entertainment and alcohol. Hearing what Toru said, Kaide jumps and practically yells at him, saying that he does not need to go such places because Toru has Kaide for him. Toru grins and teases Kaide, questioning what she means by such places. As he continues to walk ahead nonchalantly, Kaide looks at him from behind and puffs up in annoyance. Kaide inquires about a rumored dungeon in the city, prompting Toru to confirm its existence. He reveals that the dungeon predates the city itself and surprisingly announces that they shall be visiting it soon. Toru then asks Kaede if she knows anything about dungeons, but she denies, so Toru educates her on the topic, informing her that there are two reasons why adventurers go to dungeons. The first is to collect materials and equipment from monsters they kill because that's how most adventurers make a living, and the second is to reach the core stone located at the bottom of the dungeon. He also mentions that a core stone is a valuable form of material and a rare item for those who reach it because rare items equal rare skills, while other more incredible rewards can also be obtained. Kaede carefully listens to Toru and understands everything bit by bit. Since Kaede is still recovering from her sickness, they decide to explore just the first floor and increase their skills and levels. With that, they both enter the first floor, and Kaede elegantly uses her iron blades to destroy the huge rat-like monsters. She calls the move the Wind Cutter. Toru knew she could use magic, but watching her skills today clearly impressed him. She was better than he had expected. Kaede inspects her card only to find that she has already gone up to level 15. This shocks Toru because they started just an hour ago. However, Kaede still managed to go up too many levels in a very short time. Kaede reasons her achievements by telling Toru that the major increase in levels is because she is next to her master. Suddenly a thought strikes Toru, whether the experience multiplier is also increasing with the experience she is gaining, but again his thoughts are broken midway as Kaede exclaims with joy, saying that she is going to get stronger for her master Toru. Hearing her words, Toru laughs with slight hesitation. Even though they earlier decided to only venture to the first floor, right now Kaede is swiftly fighting a gang of Cyclops, a bunch of single-eyed creatures. One blow using her iron blades was enough to put the Cyclops on fire and burn them to ashes. Toru praises Kaede, saying that she has successfully finished all the monsters on this floor. However, Kaede persists, replying that level 30 is still not enough and that she needs to get stronger for her master. Hearing her words, Toru looks down at her and asks if she is not tired yet, and briefs her that they are now equipped with enough materials, so it will be better if they head back. Kaede looks at the bag containing the materials and agrees with Toru, setting up to finally head back. As they are walking their way out, Kaede notices a mat on the floor. She asks Toru about it and he ignores it, calling it garbage. However, on closer inspection, Kaede figures out that it is actually magic storage for rare items, which has a storage capacity of 100 items. Toru, still unsure, asks if it can really fit items of any size, and Kaede replies that it has the ability to store any item as she recognizes the magic circle in the embroidery on the mat. Kaede insists that they should continue to explore more floors after finding the mat. However, Toru declines, reasoning that they are short of food and water, so it is better to head back. Toru does not forget to reassure Kaede, telling her that there is no need to rush and there are many other ways to level up. Kaede, in response, looks Toru in the eyes as they both smile fondly at each other. They store the collected material in the mat and head back from the dungeon. Sitting across the table, they both order a lot of food as their empty stomachs demand. Kaede stuffs her mouth with meat and tells Toru that it is really delicious, thanking him for the meal. Toru watches her eat and tells her that there is no need to thank him. Toru counts the money that Kaede earned today, 120,000 coins. He thinks to himself that Kaede did great for a timer. He is brought back from his thoughts when Kaede asks him to eat something. However, he declines, saying that she ordered the food with the money she earned, so she should be the one enjoying the meal. Kaede stops for a while, takes out a lot of food in a plate and stretches it to Toru, telling him that food becomes more delicious when it is shared. So Toru thanks her and gladly accepts the plate full of deliciousness. After devouring the meal, both of them start walking back to their place. Toru looks at Keda, who is walking beside him, and thinks how his life has changed for good ever since he met Keda. He seemed really grateful for having her. He believes that if continues to go on a peaceful journey with his cute slave, then he will be successful in mending his broken heart. In the morning, Kaide wakes Toru up from his deep slumber. Toru finally rubs his eyes and looks at the sight in front of him. At first, his vision becomes blurry, but then he sees Cad, which causes surprise and certain sensations within him. Cad seems to have grown way too much in a night. Her fox ears are now longer, and her long golden and furry tail wiggles behind her, while her big bosoms bulge out from her chest. Kaida notices Toru staring at her, and she tells him that she woke up in this manner, helpless with torn clothes which did not fit her anymore. If Kaida keeps growing this fast, Toru certainly will not be able to treat her like a child anymore. Toru stares at Kaida in shock and confusion as he confirms if she is really Kaida, to which Kaida answers positively, smiling ear to ear. Toru decides to shake off his unholy thoughts and asks Kaida what had happened to her body, earning a response from Kaida that said she woke up to find herself in her current state. Toru then tries to clarify the situation. Until yesterday, Kaide was nothing more than a pretty young girl, but today she has become a beauty beyond comparison. Unable to think of any reason that could have caused Kaide's sudden growth, Toru wonders in amusement at how any of this could have happened. Noticing Toru's perplexity, Kaide tells him that the sudden growth in her body and self is probably because of her sudden level increase. Toru, unable to understand, asks Kaede what she means by that, and Kaede replies that it is said when a child rises beyond level 20, their body rapidly grows overnight in order to balance out their subsequently increased power. Toru listens intently, recognizing the potential truth in Kaide's words, given his own radical changes during leveling up. Still, he's troubled by Kaide's sudden metamorphosis into a breathtaking beauty, which makes it impossible for him to view her as just a kid anymore. Toru pushes aside his inappropriate thoughts and asks Kaide why she's not wearing any clothes except just a towel around her body. Kaida, in response, just holds up her torn and ill-fitting garments, explaining they no longer fit her. Considering her situation, Toru hands one of his shirts, suggesting she wears it temporarily. Kaida inquires if the shirt belongs to him, and Toru affirms, wondering if there is an issue, but Kaide just giggles, saying that the shirt smells like her beloved master Toru. Kaide buttons up the shirt and twirls, saying it's still too large. However, when Toru glances at her, he quickly covers his eyes, noticing her chest bulging out of the shirt. He hastily hands her pants, suggesting she wear those too. Toru soon enough purchases new clothes that fit Kaide flawlessly. She glides around gracefully, seeking his opinion on her look. Toru compliments, saying that the garment perfectly suited her. Hearing his praises, Kaide thanks him as redness coats her cheeks. Looking at her giddiness, Toru thinks to himself that even if her body has changed so much, she is still the same on the inside. Toru also presents Kaide with new iron blades, inquiring if she likes them. Kaide beams with delight, declaring they're perfect. Toru explains that with these blades, she'll be able to cast two magical attacks simultaneously. He cautions her to wield them responsibly, warning that misuse could be dangerous. As they stroll through the streets, Kaide attracts admiring glances and flattering comments on her beauty, while Toru draws envious stares for owning a slave as gorgeous as her. Toru grows annoyed by the attention, but retracts his frustration when Kaide mentions she'll earn more money for him today as well. But Toru reassures her, telling her that she need not worry about that today, as he still has some money left with him from killing the great dragon, and that today they shall only focus on leveling up Kaide. Kaide squeals in excitement, yelling that today They will have a lot of fun as they begin to advance in their journey. On the battle floor, Kaeda swiftly defeats the army of skeletons with her aerial blast attack, where stalactites from multiple magic circles come bashing towards the army to destroy them. Kaeda begins to jump in victory as Toru congratulates her, complimenting her efforts and moves. Kaede has been successful in reaching level 50. The minimum level required for the fourth floor is level 15, so Toru considered the clashes happening right now to be very boring. Kaede observes Toru's fatigue and asks if he's exhausted. Toru attributes his weariness to waking up early. Kaede promptly produces a large mat from thin air using her iron blades. She sits on it, patting her lap invitingly, beckoning Toru to rest his head there. Laying his head on her lap, Toru looks at Kaede as he thinks her to be mesmerizing. She smells good to him, which causes him to drool over her. Acknowledging his unholy thoughts yet again, Toru pushes them aside and eventually falls asleep. Toru wakes up grateful for the rest and notices a massive pile of shattered skeletons nearby. He turns to Kaede, inquiring about the remains. Kaede casually mentions she handled them after they attempted to attack while Toru was asleep. Hearing her, Toru's eyes go wide in awe, impressed that Kaede single-handedly managed to defeat the skeletal army without rest. She then offers to dust him off and Toru gratefully accepts. Touched by her thoughtful gesture, she used her soft furry tail to brush him off, and to Toru, it seemed like he entered the holy mode due to the sudden feeling of warmth and tingles. Toru asks if it is okay for Kaede to show him her stats, and Kaede nods in agreement, saying that she will do as her master wishes, as he proceeds to screen her stats in front of both of them. Toru inspects her levels and skills only to find out that her skills are the kinds that a mage would have, especially the power boost skill that every major mage is occupied with. Toru looks at Kaede adoringly, thinking that she will become a big star one day. After clearing his doubts about Kaede's stats, he offers her to go even deeper into the dungeon, and Kaede happily accepts the proposal as her master. Toru is fine with it. On the 10th floor, Kaede implements her aerial slash magic to defeat the goblins riding on monstrous dogs. Noticing the way she controls her power, Toru asks Kaede whether she is good with magic, and Kaede thanks to her leveling up, because of which her magic strength increases faster than the amount that she uses. The army of goblins coming at Kaede seemed huge, so Toru offered help, but surprisingly Kaede is able to take them all by herself without any help. Looking at the way she handles and destroys the goblin riders, Toru feels bad for the monsters, even though they are said to be one of the strongest vials. On reaching deeper at the 20th floor, they decide to eat and rest for a while, so Toru gathers wood, lights them on fire, and heats up some food for both of them to devour. Toru hands Kaede her portion. She begins to close her eyes and smell the food to check if it is alright, and apologies to Toru, telling him that as a slave she is supposed to do this. However, Toru dismisses her apology, saying that he is pretty used to it by now, so she need not fret over it. Toru inquires her about the level that she is currently in. Kaede answers that she is at level 150, which amazes Toru, as in a short period of time, Kaede managed to go up 100 levels. Kaede tastes the soup prepared by Toru and exclaims with joy, calling it delicious. She boasts about Toru, telling him he makes the best soup. Hearing the overflowing compliments from Kaede, Toru scratches his head and thanks her demurely, saying that he has heard it a lot. After completing their food, they both begin cleaning the bowls. As Kaede gets up, Toru asks her if there are any tricks to utilize magic. Keida gives Toru's question a thought and replies that the most important thing is the magic. The image plus the spell plus the condition contributes to creating magic as a whole. She proceeds to mention that if one knows the spell, then that person can use the magic in various conditions. However, even if one doesn't know the spell, then the person can still use the magic just by imagining and creating a picture of that magic in their head. Toru carefully listens to her and tries implementing her words into action. He brings his hand into a fist as he imagines a flame and checks if the flame comes out of his hand. To his amazement, the flame came out of his hand, but that lasted only for a few seconds. Disappointed, Toru shares this difficulty with Kaide, who is busy washing her hands in a pond, and she enlightens him with the information that his abilities will get better with practice and dedication. Toru agrees with Kaide, reminding himself that the key to accessing everything and anything is nothing but hard work and dedication. Toru, with a determined smile on his face, dreams of using his powers in committing good deeds. Kaisa and Toru get back to the 19th floor in order to defeat more monsters, gain more rewards, and increase Kaide's levels. An army of skeletons, 3 horned monsters, deadly jinns, and Minotaur come running at Kaide with the intention to kill her. However, she freezes them using her magical iron blades and outstanding skills. Toru starts worrying about her, but then remembers that she has already reached level 200, so he need not get too much protective over her. Sabotaging the monsters on every floor, they finally reach the 30th floor. Toru does not sense any monsters, however alerts Kaede to not let her guard down. They walk on a bejeweled path, and after a while they find the dungeon's core floating in the air. Kaede suggests to Toru that they have been successful in reaching the bottom of the dungeon and requests Toru to touch the core and obtain his reward. Toru, however, insists Kaede to be the one to touch the core, acknowledging that he had not done much in this journey and that Kaede deserves to be the one to touch the core and claim the reward. Kaede stands sternly on her grounds, thanking Toru because of whom she was able to make it so far, as well as increase her levels, and pleads Toru to walk ahead in order to touch the core. The continuous compulsion that Toru is getting from Kaede forces him to walk ahead and touch the core. Still, he does not forget to thank Kaede for this opportunity. Toru lifts his hand to touch the core as he remembers that he had always dreamt of completing a dungeon since he was a kid, and today when he is finally living his dream, he wonders what kind of reward he will be possessing. Toru opens his eyes abruptly when he hears Kaede calling him. He sits up and wonders what could have happened to have him pass out, leaving him with a slight headache. He looks up and to his stupefaction, the dungeon has magically vanished. Then, as he looks around him, he finds out that both of them are deep in a vast hole, which once used to be a dungeon. He wonders where the dungeon could have possibly disappeared after they had completed it, but figures no answer to his question. Keise breaks him out of his trance and asks him if he had previously worn a ring on his finger. Toru glances at his hand and figures that the ring must be the reward he achieved. Kaede seems to also have one ring on her finger. Suddenly, both of their attention is gained by 3 tabs popping up in front of them. The tabs congratulate them on clearing the Luntata labyrinth, and the tabs also state that both of them have gained themselves a dungeon and 2 rings of disguise. The reward takes Toru by surprise as Kaede explains to him that the ring has the power to disguise one's stats, and as a bonus, each level seems to improve its performance. Toru smiles and considers the rewards to be pretty high level and very useful. Toru suggests leaving, but Kaede expresses concerns about escaping the deep hole. Without hesitation, he sweeps her into a bridal carry and bursts upward, flying out of the hole with ease. Once safely on solid ground, Kaede nods in approval, praising Toru's impressive rescue with a praising smile. Noting the midnight hour, Toru recommends departing before their surroundings become more treacherous. Kaid agrees, and together they decide to leave the perilous area behind, grateful for their narrow escape and each other's company. They set off into the night, ready to face whatever lies ahead. 2 days after leaving Lontata, they are headed towards the city of Aina Erk. Even though Toru considers it a pretty pointless trip, he continues regardless because they have stuff they need to do. They finally reach the place that they have been searching for. They start looking around the ruins of gods. They figure that once there used to be an advanced civilization flourishing here, the creators of the civilization are called the Great Races. Even though the destruction and disappearance of the civilization are still unknown, there are buildings and remains still left from that era of civilization. Toru considers that ruins are a man's romance, and since they are going on a long trip, they cannot miss visiting such places or missing out on the gourmet food of such places. Toru and Keida take a seat on the rocks and start munching on their snacks as Keida questions Toru if he has thought of a name for their party. Roaming Brigade, Toru exclaims and asks Keida about her thoughts on this name. Keida nods and mentions that it is just the two of them, to which Toru replies that even if for now it is just the two of them, the atmosphere is still nice and that they will have new members join their party of two eventually and gradually. Case gladly agrees with Toru as he expresses that he is here to enjoy his life and explore the world leisurely. As they are spending their leisure time sitting and enjoying their surroundings, a question bugs Toru, so he decides to ask Keida about it. He wants to know the circumstances because of which she ended up as a slave. As Keida begins to open her mouth to answer his question, their attention is drawn by a carriage being attacked by a troop of bad people. Seeing that both Cade and Toru decide to help the people inside the carriage, Toru starts to throw punches at the bad people and stops the carriage from running into huge stones. The troop tries to harm Toru, but he uses his power to blow them off out of sight. Two people behind Toru aim their arrows at him, but Kaida glides her iron blades and slits their throats, calling those people no match against her abilities and strength. Once the commotion is settled, a beautiful lady walks out of the carriage and thanks both of them for their help. Katie hides behind Toru, getting a bit scared, despite which the lady introduces herself as Marianta, daughter of Count Ruata, and again thanks both of them for helping her out in the dangerous situation. Toru assures Kaida that everything is alright and introduces himself as the adventurer, Thor-sama, while declaring Kaide as her slave. Hearing that Kaide bows and shows her respect. Hearing the name Thor-sama, Marianta jumps and holds Toru's hands as she requests both of them to follow her to her mansion, where she can offer them her gratitude and gratefulness. Without letting Toru speak another word, she drags and shoves both of them inside the carriage, just what awaits Toru in his journey ahead. Find out in the next episode of Dragon Ball Z. There is more chapters to this manga, so subscribe now and let's get 2k likes for part 2. Thanks for watching, bros. Stay awesome and peace!